No one can predict the next war, but we cannot wait. We cannot f***ing wait. This screen control knob lets Black Hawk pilots scroll through aircraft data. We break around 4 of these every single month. When this little tiny thing breaks, the whole aircraft is grounded. The vendor won't produce replacements. So instead, we have to turn in this entire screen assembly and pay $47,000 for a replacement. $47,000 to replace this assembly when we can make this knob for 15 bucks.
We saw the Secretary of the Army pretty much obliterate every single military industrial complex because he recently spoke about some of the troubling issues, as it seems like a lot of them are not in support of the military, but they're in support of just getting as much money as they want with inflated government contracts. Now, this happened at the Association of the United States of Army, which is this kind of venue where they come out and talk about the future of the military and things that are going on. And I'm like, thank you. We are actually seeing something very crazy switch over here, and we're getting some exposure from inside where people are actually able to make a difference.
No one can predict the next war, but we cannot wait. We cannot f***ing wait to innovate until Americans are dying on the battlefield. We must act now to enable our soldiers. Our window to change is right now, and we have a plan to do it. We will set the pace of innovation, and we will win with silicon and software, and not our soldiers' blood and bodies. At conferences like this, we tend to talk over, past, or around you, but you are the very reason we are here today. We literally don't have an army without our soldiers. We are nothing without you, and you need to be a part of this.
He's right. We can't wait. And, you know, I wasn't really alive during the Cold War era, but from everything I've watched, because I love war history, stuff like that, it seems like we're repeating ourselves again with kind of the Russia situation, but instead we're kind of having like not Cold War directly Russia, but Russia's still kind of involved in this, but that's so crazy because if you have not looked this up, the Chinese 100-year plan, very easily, it is honestly easy to find a whole breakdown. There's a Secretary of State PDF, which is broken down why there is this big feud, essentially, trade war that's happening. We've seen that recently already kind of continuing on with certain tariffs and things like that. And this has been projected out for at least the last 5 to 10 years I've been hearing about it. So I don't want the American public to sit here and be like, we didn't know. I just didn't hear anything. Now, these clips were posted from a fellow social media influencer, Viva La Vargas, where it looks like he attended this event and he showed this other clip as well.
This is the thing for a Black Hawk's external fuel tank. They are built cheap, so they break often. The vendor charges over $14,000 for a replacement. Our team can do it better. They 3D scanned the part, reverse engineered it, printed prototypes, and conducted structural validation in only 43 days. The part I'm holding is their floor prototype. Now we can manufacture this part for just over $3,000. Ours is 300% stronger and 78% cheaper. And we can ramp up supply in less than 6 days. Let me show you another example. This screen control knob lets Black Hawk pilots scroll through aircraft data. It is really small. We break around 4 of these every single month. When this little tiny thing breaks, the whole aircraft is grounded. The vendor won't produce replacements. So instead, we have to turn in this entire screen assembly and pay $47,000 for a replacement. $47,000 to replace this assembly when we can make this knob for 15 bucks. That is a 313,000% markup, and we're spending around $188,000 every month for what we could solve for $60.
Yeah, you guys have seen this. This is 36 different times in a year this piece will break. That is $47,000, which, by the way, is about what a service member makes, a little more than that, by the way, that could be working on that part. And then in a year, that is $1.692 freaking million on one singular issue. And you guys are wondering why everything's bloated. You wonder why the DoD budget is so high. But in the past, we've seen so much pressure from all of these talking heads that are essentially saying like, oh, we need to cut this DoD budget. And do you know where those cuts happen? They don't happen on the ships. They don't happen on the aircraft. They don't happen on this maintenance stuff. They don't happen on any of the contracts. They are happening by cutting people less and less as far as the military goes to reduce that as much as possible. That could be stripping benefits. That could be giving very marginal pay raises, which until recently was actually fixed, by the way. And people are being told to go on food stamps because they couldn't afford food, which that was before a government shutdown and not being paid possibly. So, and the comments don't disappoint because this is kind of scary, but it is a reality. Small Town Sparky 43 says, why is the government 30 trillion in debt? This is why. And then below that, it's some anonymous user which says, well, dude, it was nice knowing you, I guess. Yeah, so we have to assume this guy's going to be fired, kicked out because there's too many people that are intermingling essentially to try and make sure their government contracts are still being paid out while the American people are still trying to get other things fixed as well. Now, there are 3 specific instances I'm going to give you so that way you understand kind of where this is going. Now, the first part of this is I've seen this military contractor that's 21 years old that has essentially said, I could work for the government, I could do all that, bring my brains over there, but he's like, I'm not going to finish school. I'm also not going to play games, and I'm going to make sure I'm the leading anti-drone warfare contractor in the military if I can.
What's most concerning is you can look at ultra large-scale strike with very, very cheap assets. So if you can find a way to get very small, like $400 to $1,000 drones by the millions, what you'll see it used for is taking out all of your cell phone towers, taking out all of your high voltage power transformers, taking out your cranes and ports.
His company, Mach Industries, received a Pentagon development contract and has already raised hundreds of millions of dollars to think outside the military industrial box. And that means churning out as many cheap, deadly drones as possible. The kinds of systems that have transformed the modern battlefield in places like Ukraine.
So yeah, essentially the warfare right now is the idea that China, along with all these other chip manufacturers, are going to be inundating whatever force they can with small drone warfare is what they're looking at. We've also seen that in Ukraine, so we are learning from that as well, which is good because God forbid we don't learn from the cheapest warfare you can see and play out in real time. And because of that, the Secretary of the Army has said, we have done this too slow and the technological advances are happening too fast to where we cannot keep up. Watch this clip right here. It's from a distance, but the information's important.
Into Crusader, Comanche, and Booker, programs the Army knew from the very beginning weren't right. These were all unequivocal failures that eroded Congress's and the public's trust in Army acquisitions. Meanwhile, the commercial sector transformed the world. AI, robotics, ubiquitous computing, but our soldiers are still stuck fighting with systems conceived in the 1980s. At home, your fingertips command artificial intelligence, instantly exchange data worldwide, and your vehicle self-drives you to work. You live in a vibrant, ever-changing technological world that actually enables your day-to-day life. Then, once you arrive at work, you exist in an organization that has been conditioned to expect technological failure. Sadly, that is a fair response considering what we have provided to our soldiers for decades. Over a career in the Army, you literally spend months of your life waiting on Army systems to work. Then, when you train, you step into the same platforms that we fielded 30 and 40 years ago, like the Humvee. You struggle to communicate beyond line of sight, and you wonder why the hell you just can't use the smartphone in your pocket. Before and after work, our soldiers live in the real world. But while they're on duty, they time travel to the early 2000s at best. Or earlier. Look at this picture behind me. No, really look at it. Check out that closest soldier in the picture. That's Specialist Gail Valera, who was born in 2004. The system he's working on was originally fielded in 1995, 9 years before he was born, and it still runs on its original programming code. Meanwhile, Ukraine is updating its drone software every couple of weeks. It is absolutely unconscionable that we would send soldiers to war with 30-year-old obsolete systems.
Lastly, I covered a topic here as well where I showed there's a corporal in E4 in the Marine Corps, which had saved the Marine Corps millions of dollars, and he got pennies on the dollar even though he could have made millions. Now, because of that, I have to tell you guys that essentially, in order to make all this happen, in order to change the tide of this thing, we have to incentivize it. I would say the U.S. military would have to incentivize people with inside of it and giving blank tools, 3D printers, things like that, if they can. We have a lot of people that are smart, and I think the understanding is how do you filter those people out in an industry or in a space where there are not necessarily degrees about this. There are people with natural talents that learn how to code, people with natural talents that learn how to 3D print, that this is not like you went to school for this so you can do this job. And that is a talent management issue that we're going to find across the board. With all this, it does make me worried. I'm not trying to fearmonger anybody, but I am trying to be very honest. When they're talking about the near peer-to-peer adversary, and we're saying that we can't print one singular part to get this aircraft up and moving, those are people's lives at stake. These are people's entire livelihood. And I want people to understand that this is making us weaker if we are not able to capitalize on new technologies. I will digress, and I'll let you guys tell your own stories and anecdotal stories down in the comments below. As always, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below.